Bon, bonjour à tous. On va le faire en français. Non, c'est une blague. Morning, everyone. I should speak French. I am French, but I'll do it in English. I'll use some terms which might sound a bit technical, so I'll take the privilege of translating them in French, and thank you very much to the translator over there. Congrats to the organizers. Congrats to the city of Toulouse for bringing these kind of conversations to you. They're so important. So let me first disagree with Dennis over there. No, Dennis, Darwin does not mandate survival of the fittest. No. It's survival of the most adaptive. The key word is adaptation, and that's very important. Those who cannot tolerate and deal with change are doomed. It so happens that humans are pretty good with that. I say pretty because it depends on the velocity and magnitude of the kind of change that we have to withhold. I see a lot of young faces in the room. Much like you do, or at least many of you do, if I take a further step back, I look at the role of Europe, the role of governance in articulating the collective and artificial intelligence, here is the challenge that we have to solve. What it's about squaring up, mètre carré, squaring up the digital and the ecological transition in a way, and that's not easy to do. We know we need to act now. There's climate urgency. We have SDGs. We have a moral compass. And guess what? We have over 119 countries which more or less agree on the fact that these sustainable development goals are the way to go. So we know in a way what we're designing for. And within those SDGs, well, there is one called SDG 13, climate action. There is urgency. So we know that we need to go there, and we could, and we are, and we will harness the power of the digital, and within that, the power of AI to achieve those goals and to solve climate change. But because there is so much of urgency, this squaring up process, cette mise au carré, is quite dangerous. Because in so doing, we will have to risk sacrificing all liberal, social, and democratic values. Oh yes, we do. Liberal, well, have you heard of privacy, free will, freedom of speech? Don't you think that they're in danger right now? Well, I think we can all agree. They're being challenged. Social inequalities are at an all-time high. The history of the digital revolution is that, so far, of a story of accumulation of wealth and powers in the end of a few. That's dangerous for a social system. Are we going to be able to bear with that? You know, immigration is part of it. Imagine what will happen to sub-Saharan Africa when climate change desertifies even more sub-Saharan Africa, and the demographic boom is here. Well, so how are we going to mètre carré, square up the digital and the ecological transition? I have the privilege of leading a research and action institute called the Future Society. Why are we called the Future Society? Why do you think I carry a cross like that? I could have been called the Institute for the Governance of Emerging Technologies. I could have done that. I work with the World Bank, I work with the OECD, I work with the UN, I work with many people in the room here, including UNESCO over there. Where is she? Coming back. Including Opino, MIT. So why the Future Society? Well, because what lies upon us is nothing less, rien de moins, that redesigning some of the most important social contracts. It's about social contracts. The future is not something that you predict, it's something that you build. And redesigning the social contracts in a way that articulates the social and the ecological, that promotes liberal, democratic, and social values as a cocktail is not going to be easy to do. It's a systemic problem that mandates collective intelligence. And democracy is one very interesting pathway to do that. One very important pathway to do that. Not the only one, but one very important pathway to do that at the macro level. So we do anything. We advise governments, we advise international organizations, we do research, we do events, and at the core of what we do, we have baked, or we're trying to bake these methodologies, tools, and best practices of collective intelligence. We're specialized in the governance of AI and emerging technologies. Our problem is trying to solve the governance, and especially the global governance of AI. We are not alone. CFI, great people. FHI, great people. MIRI, great people. There's a community out there. And we believe in the power of collective intelligence there because we underestimate the ways in which the community is polarized and divided. Did you hear what was happening here today? I mean, the big division between Dennis and, I forgot your first name, and Henry. Let me tell you, it's replete within our community. And if I was to, in a way, map for you the community of interests, the community of practice of people involved in the governance of AI, I would say that there are 3 tribes. One tribe focuses on safety, what we call AI safety. They are really preoccupied with problems of the end of the world. And I think they're right too. I think that the rise of AGI is possible. I disagree with you, Dennis. It's not there. It's possible. And that causes an enormous problem. Remember, climate urgency, we need to be more intelligent at solving the problems that we have to solve. And in so doing, we could breed something powerful. Not necessarily very intelligent, but very powerful. So one is AI safety. The second is what we call AI ethics. People who are more preoccupied with problems of the end of the month. You know, should we make sure that the principles of due process and fair treatment be baked at the center of what we do in terms of using machine learning to attribute a loan for your student's life or a loan for your access to property when you want to buy a house? This is at the core of our model. This is end of the month. This is very important. And then you've got a third tribe, and I'd like to think of them and of us as a community, as communities more than tribes, because tribe is, in the mouth of some, disrespectful. So let's be positive, because most of us are trying to be well-meaning and trying to really solve problems. The third one, I would frame as people really preoccupied with AI prosperity. When I spent 10 years in India, I worked in development for many years. I had the privilege of working on complex biometrics project to create an identity backbone to 1 billion people in India. And I was involved in a project that really attempted and delivered part of that, but did that without even legal regime in place for privacy protection. How crazy is this? 1 billion people, no privacy regulation. And the message I would hear from a lot of the policymakers on that side of the world was basically, you guys, and especially Gora, I'm a white man, and I'm a white middle-aged man, I'm very privileged. I want to acknowledge this on this stage. I'm not a female, I'm not brown, I'm very privileged, I'm very lucky. We are, most of us in this room, very lucky. Let's say that. And he basically told me, you white man have the privilege of privacy, we've got the urgency of development. Oh yes, they do. Over 800 million people still in that country live with less than €2, not $1. It's not BPL, it's not the below poverty line. I'm rising it, I'm being aspirational here. €2 per day, 800 million. It's not a small number. So yes, they have an urgency. Add to that climate change, okay? If you know what is going on in the Gangetic Plain, be worried. So, and then I decided that we have a big problem, that we need to solve that. So this AI prosperity, people are people who say, privacy is great, but we need access to credit in Africa. We need access to healthcare. We need access to transportation. These basic services are not there. AI can help us leapfrog those systems. And these are complex problems that will not be solved in any other way but by using massively open collective intelligence. Yes, that's a tall call, but someone has to try and take it. So we're trying. And 2 projects that we did and we will continue to do in the future, partly with the UNESCO friends, that Sasha is going to present a little bit after my talk. So we did the first ever global civic debate on governing the rise of AI. It was an experiment led over 7 months that used a protocol for physical workshops and an online platform with a tiny bit of semantic analysis. And I think we have colleagues from Blue Nov in the room who really helped us with their platform in doing this online consultation. We did that over 7 months, and to basically try and answer the following kind of questions. What the heck do we mean by AI? Trust me, there is no agreement. What are the dynamics of the rise of AI? Trust me, there is still no agreement. What are the consequences of the rise of AI? Trust me, there is no agreement. And how do we need to govern these consequences to maximize the upsides, minimize the downsides, and ensure that the upsides reach everyone, or most. That's a tough proposition. We did that over almost a year, 30 events, 5 languages, French, Russian, Japanese, Chinese, and English, obviously. We tried to venture into Korean and German, but we had to stop at some point. I will not claim, I really like what François said, I will not claim here democracy. It was not an exercise in democracy. We are very, very low in the threshold that separates collective intelligence from deliberative democracy. And that was partly a failure, let me claim that. We had 2,000 participants, but a small core of 700 and a very active core of 100. Not millions, I will not claim that. And we had 3,000 contributions, written contributions. And it was very insightful for us. It belongs to Europe because we made the choice of releasing the report at the European Parliament. Why? Well, because in our view, the European Parliament stands today as the most advanced and the bravest exercise in transnational collective intelligence. My grandfather killed Germans, my great-grandfather killed Germans, and now we're parliamenting, if you want, together to find a future. That's quite amazing. We're spitting on Europe, we're spitting on European Parliament. I think we're wrong. I think we need to be a bit more humble and respectful. And here are two or three of the insights that came out of this consultation. First, the notion of AI is obsolete. It is loaded because of the ways in which socio-technical imaginaries, driven by science fiction and fueled by scientists, are in a way intoxicating our global perceptions. People are afraid, and the notion of AI, it's neither artificial nor intelligence. It's collective and quite brutal. Deep neural networks are glorified, complex statistical models. They're very complex, but they're not intelligent, in my view. So we need to move beyond that, and we've been working on a number of initiatives, including that of the notion of extended intelligence that bridges the gap between the so-called artificial. Come on, is it artificial? Who labels those pictures? Who designs those algorithms? Who interpret the decision-making? Not computers, you and I, and generally middle-aged white male. Okay, let's face it too. Huh? And it's increasingly Asians, but middle-aged white male. We have a problem here. Second, there is so much of a conflict within the community of AI experts and practitioners that we need to pave the way to create a solid base of matter of fact. And we are expert in governance, or at least we're trying to be, and we recommended the creation of an IPCC for AI. IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. For over 30 years, it tried to bring together in a constructive process scientists from around the world to create knowledge over what is climate change, what causes it, what drives it. And we believed that borrowing from that model and adapting it so that it's more open to citizens, because scientists at times speak away from their scientific expertise. Science is a very narrow path. At this point, I speak as a scientist. The moment I'm there, I'm not a scientist anymore. My scientific authority drops dramatically. But a lot of us try and wrap ourselves, cloak ourselves into the authority of science without acknowledging that the moment we step out, well, it's not scientific authority anymore. It's another type. It's great. We need you. And so we've been working on starting this IPCC for quite a while. You would have seen, and I think that we have a little role in that our dear President Macron announced that he wanted to do that with the French AI for Humanity strategy. At the end of this month, we will all gather in Paris for the Global Forum on AI for Humanity, which is supposed to be launching this idea. It's not perfect, in my view, for so many reasons, but that's what I believe is very much needed. And that was one of the key insights of our debates. One was ideas, and the second was practical pathways, practical solutions to get to where we need to be. And the third insight I want to, in a way, leave you with is this very boundary. Is coming back to the definition of AI. So we tend to draw the boundary between artificial general intelligence and artificial narrow intelligence, and to me that's dangerous. One of the things that we need to do, and many of us are working on that already now, is to deconstruct that boundary and rebuild it on more solid grounds. Why? Because the ways in which we define general or narrow intelligence is in relation, it's relative. It's relative to something that we do not understand. Do we understand human intelligence? No, we don't. The brain, the deep biochemical processes that drives the ways in which we operate as animals is still a huge black box. We do not understand it. So we are looking at something which is relative, therefore creating the possibility of a huge blind spot. And that's what Dennis was referring to. He said, well, you're worshiping this AGI thing. Let me show you how things are already very powerful here and tomorrow. And so if we are to govern the rise of AI safely, to promote our liberal values, and when I say liberal, think freedom, don't think only free markets, think freedom, think free will, free will, free will. If we are to bake those things in the way in which we govern AI as it grows more powerful, it's important that we have a better understanding, for example, of this notion of AGI. And that's only possible if we bring together under one big tent the three tribes I mentioned before. And that's something that we're trying to do. It's called the Ai Civic Forum. It is basically borrowing the best from your Grand Débat as part of the Gilets jaunes, if you remember well. Try and do things a little bit better. Try and do this at the global level. It will be launched next month at the Paris Peace Forum. And one of the key partners in that is obviously UNESCO. There are others in Canada. There are others in the US. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much.